YouTube, hey, it's Petey Twofinger. So you built a guitar pedal and it's making noise. When you turn the gain all the way up, it's going loo, it's feeding back self-oscillation. Well, what you can do is you get a piece of coaxial cable and the input here, the positive lead, you're going to remove the wire that you used for your positive lead on the input. Where the cable comes in, the guitar cable, it'll be a 1/4 inch jack. So then the end connector is the hot side of that, the positive side, and that will go down either to the PCB, the circuit, or it'll go to the 3PDT, the stomp switch, this switch. So what you need to do is you can get yourself some coaxial wire. And coax is, I don't really have an example here, but like when I talk about coax, I'm not talking about what you screw into the back of your television. It's just wire, like if you have RCA cable, you can take that RCA cable, it'll usually have 2 of them joined together, remove them, strip them from each other, and then cut it, and then you'll carefully strip that insulation back, and you'll see, oh, here is, it's 1 row of insulation on the outside, and then there is stranded copper wire surrounding the inner stinger, which is another piece of insulation with another stranded wire inside of it. And that's what we want. We're looking for a wire in a wire. And how this works is you could think of your input wire, you could think of it as being an antenna. And what's it picking up? Well, it's picking up your signal from the pedal. It's picking up itself, so it's feeding back. So what we do is we use a coaxial piece of cable, so your antenna is covered, it's shielded. And then how that's connected, this is where it gets silly. You solder the, how I do it, the end of the coax, the negative, gets connected to the ground side on the jack. But when you get all the way down here, you don't want to hook up the other side of that ground, because then whatever that wire is grabbing will actually go into the circuit and make it through the amplifier. So in this case, I know it sounds crazy, and this always freaked me out when somebody first told me this. Robert Henry, or Dead Astronaut, was the guy who told me about this when I built his Spitfire pedal. So you only connect one end of it, and the way that I do it is I will custom cut a piece of coax that's just as long as what I need to do, and prepare it really nice with one end having both the negative and the positive. I'll go ahead and twist those nice, and then apply a little bit of flux, and then tin them. And then on the other end, I do the same thing, only I clip off the ground. So how it connects is the negative, or the coaxial shielding, goes to the ground side. The hot wire goes to the hot side of our input jack, and then you run, in this case it was connecting, it's a true bypass pedal, so it connects to the DPDT switch, so the 3PDT, excuse me. So it just go ahead and connect that hot wire to wherever your wiring diagram is telling you, probably number 2 or number 3, and you just don't hook up the other side of it. As far as your ground wire, that's all per normal how it goes. And you don't have to worry about the output. This is only on the input because we've got a high gain device. And typically, like I ran into with, you want to see? I ran into with the big muff. You know, if you know about a big muff, the PCB is about this big for a big muff. It's a large PCB, and the transistors are spread out. I bought one. Another guitar player, kind of put me on the spot. You're gonna build a pedal for me. And I said, oh, really? What am I? What am I going to build for you? You're going to build me a big muff. And I really, I wasn't thrilled because I went through and had to order everything. It cost me more than he paid. He paid me $30 to build the pedal. Later, I demanded another $30 out of him because he actually got a Hale Rust driver that I built. And then he got his big muff that he demanded. And that big muff was a 125B enclosure, so the guy who designed it shrunk it down. And when you're talking 7 high gain transistors on that little tiny board, it just self-oscillated when you turned it up, even with the coax wire. And I did everything I could because I knew this guy was going to say, when you turn it all the way up, it squeals. So I cut in a low value potentiometer across the legs 1 and 3 of the gain pot. So even when you had it dimed, it wasn't. There was still enough resistance, just enough to calm that. And that kind of neutered. He didn't like that. He said he did not like that pedal unless he combined it with the Hale Rust driver, which was just like, you know. Why didn't you just let me tell you what I think you need? Like you would say, look, I want a big muff, and I would go, well, you're going to get a rat. Because as far as DIY pedals, the rat's what is way easier to build, and it doesn't oscillate, and it's so much better than a big muff. Anyway, if you've got yourself a pedal that's self-oscillating, it's a higher gain overdrive, distortion, or fuzz, and your input wire is not a piece of coax, this is the first thing you do. You cut in a coax, hook it up, hook the ground part of it up on the input jack, and leave the other side of it down at the switch unconnected, and that's going to solve all of your self-oscillation woes. So that's a little tip or trick that I learned from Robert Henry, Dead Astronaut Guy. This here is a, what do you call it? It's got 3 germaniums in there. See them? It's a Spaceman Effects Sputnik 2 clone, or Leica fuzz, and this one has the, I call it a decoupling transformer on the input. So even if you use a active pickup guitar with humbuckers, this circuit will see the load of a single coil pickup. So this is really cool because you can have a wah-wah pedal, active pickups, a buffered tuner, all that stuff that normally makes a fuzz pedal very unhappy in the fact that it just won't sound right. This particular pedal, it's brilliant how they figured that out. And it does some, it's got some tricks up its sleeve, so they're not cheap. I saw on reverb.com one of the originals, mind you, this is a clone I've built. One of the originals sold for $2,100, and another one sold for $1,800. So they're not cheap. And I have 2 of these here. I got to finish the other one up. I got one running, the other one I got to get going. And I just haven't been feeling up to doing that. I haven't been well. I I had a chest cold, which affected my hearing, and I just feeling like crap for a long time. Haven't been playing. I did play a little bit. You can see I got tape on my fingers because I tore them up from playing. So then I'll tape them up. Anyway, you guys, that'll about do it. If you've got any questions about pedal building, comments, questions, stuff like that, you know, I try to share stuff that I think will be useful. And today I saw someone on a forum was talking about he had built 3 Acapulco Gold pedals and all 3 of them oscillated, and I'm like, man, does he know about that coax trick? Because like if you look it up, if you type in like high gain pedal self-oscillate coax input, you don't find any. It doesn't take you to any article, but it's a semi-well-known type of thing that you'll pick up on in the DIY community. When you're building a higher gain device, you want to use a shielded cable for the input wire connection, but you don't hook up both sides of the ground. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a ground cable that's connected. There is. That's a secondary separate cable. We're talking about just the hot wire. Okay, so normally you just use a regular straight single piece of wire and you build this thing and it's it's squealing uncontrollably. Then you unsolder that wire, cut a piece of coax, trim up, prepare both of the ends, and then cut off the grounded end on the switch side. You go ahead and solder those in on the input jack, how you normally would do it, with the hot side of the wire going to the end connector, hook up your ground. But then on the other side of the connector, the other ground, you just cut that off. That's merely being used to shield this piece of this run of wire, the input wire, and then whatever gets picked up on that gets shunted to ground. If you were to hook that up, it defeats the purpose. So that's using a piece of coax to stop self-oscillation on a high gain pedal. All right, you guys, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, and peace.